Autism presents lifelong challenges to the individual, parents, caregivers, and teachers worldwide. It becomes more acute because it is not easily recognizable or diagnosed. Individuals with autism too often become adults who are marginalized, misunderstood, mistreated, and forgotten. What is autism? What are the signs? How is it diagnosed? How prevalent is it in the world? How many people suffer the disorder in Trinidad and Tobago? And what is presently being done about it?
At times, I will be so frustrated, I don't know what to do. It puts a demand on the parents, and I think that this is why it is so important that as a teacher, we communicate. There must be a school and home communication.
You get a lot of scratches, a lot of bites, a lot of tugging of the hair, hence the short hair.
It's about all kind of people out there, you know. Some would watch you, some would, you know, but I don't take them on no more.
We as a family did not remain in the denial stage that nothing was wrong with him. From the time we discovered that he was autistic, or he had autistic traits, we worked on it immediately as a family. We used a whole family approach.
Autism is a group of developmental disabilities caused by unusual brain development that tend to negatively affect social and communication skills. It impacts the way a child communicates, interacts with other people, and perceives and reacts to the world, our world. Many people with autism also have unusual ways of learning. This complex developmental disability is typically identified during infancy and lasts throughout a person's life.
The reason why they call it autism spectrum syndrome, right? It's a syndrome and it affects every aspect or to the pathways in the simple terms of learning. I would call it pathways or domains of learning. It affects the communicative domain. It affects the behavioral domain. It affects the socialization domain, and it affects the cognitive or the academic domain. In some of the pathways or domains, it affects more than others. But one of the basic challenges of autism spectrum disorder is the ability, it affects the communicative domain. Right? Children are unable to understand what people speak to them or tell them. And the socialization domain.
You do the pogo? Moko Jambi? Yeah? What do you like best?
Best. Is that Jabi?
See, that's part of the Echo Lake aspect, you know, the language.
Right.
He'll repeat what you say. When you question him and you actually guide him to what he has to do.
They may appear indifferent, they may appear aloof, they may not look you in the eye, but some children do. They may not seem to be that friendly to you, but since it's such a disorder that they may not all have the same feature presentations, the children may be affectionate, but they're only really affectionate when they want to be affectionate.
The scale of autism disability ranges from mild to severe, hence the term autism spectrum disorder. Some people are highly verbal, while others do not speak. Some exhibit unusual behaviors, such as hand flapping, head banging, or unprovoked screaming. Some children enjoy deep pressure, such as going under cushions, while others resist being touched, even lightly. But there are other characteristics as well.
They don't play creatively, they don't have fantasy play, they don't pretend to play, in other words. They may be obsessed by a particular activity or by a particular subject. Like, for example, they may play with cars, roll the wheels, and things like that constantly and may do it all the time, or be fixated on one type of toy or one topic.
In the USA, the rate of diagnosis is 1 in every 500 to 1 in 166, the second most common serious developmental disability in America. From limited available statistics, the number of autism cases is increasing in Trinidad and Tobago.
In 1991, we had maybe 30 to 40 families. Now we have over 230 families, and as a parent support group, we are made up mainly of parents who have children with this condition.
This startling revelation was discovered in Teresina's relentless pursuit of information to assist her son, Kester.
After I learned that my son was autistic, I couldn't get any information at all about this serious brain disorder. And when I put things in the newspapers and asked people to contact me, I was amazed that the parents came and said that, you know, there wasn't much available, and they felt that they now were not alone.
This common bond would lead to the formation of the Autistic Society of Trinidad and Tobago, a registered charitable organization of people built on a foundation of hands-on experience, commitment, and mutual trust.
I would really break down and cry because I was teaching children day to day, every day at a high school, and not being able to teach my own child. So it came out of a need to get in touch with other families.
Caring for an individual with autism is mentally, physically, and emotionally draining.
I see tears every morning because when these children throw tantrums and they cry, they scream, kick, bite themselves, scream, parents just don't know how. I mean, having an autistic child, when you have a child, you're not trained for autism. We go to school and we study for years and then we read books about it. But when you're a parent, you are faced with this thing hands-on, and it's very difficult. Now, we try to get them to do stuff, but in the United States and Canada, they have professionals coming to the home and actually helping, showing these parents what to do. We can't do that, you know. Our society doesn't cater for that, and we can't, the parents cannot afford that kind of therapy. So you find it's very, very difficult and frustrating in the home.
Autism is found in families of all racial, ethnic, and social backgrounds. And whilst medical science is yet to determine what really causes the disorder, family and twin studies have suggested that there is a genetic component.
It can be inherited in other children in the family. For example, if you have one child with autism, there's a 3 to 7% chance of a second one having it. And you may find when we take histories that we find it running in families like in cousins or in another generation. They may describe the features of a member of the family or things like that.
It is 4 times more common in boys than girls, some of whom you may recognize in this video if you live in Trinidad and Tobago. Even though they look much like others and are expected to behave normally, they are quite different in significant ways and require a wide range of special educational provision.
So you need a speech therapist, you need an occupational therapist, you need the developmental specialist to help you to develop the cognitive skills and also the behavioral skills. The developmental specialist comes in here. You also need special education teachers, you need medical and financial support.
Susan De Freitas is a special education teacher at the Strategic Learning Center in Trinidad, one of the few privately run early intervention programs for children with developmental disabilities. She teaches communication skills using the picture exchange communication system that starts when a child gets an item on giving a picture of the item.
It's a wonderful method. It's very inexpensive. It requires a lot of materials in terms of getting pictures and structuring of the home, but it's very visual, it's very concrete, and it really gives the child an opportunity to express their needs and wishes. And since most of these kids are visual learners, effects work wonderful for them.
I choose bubble. I want bubble.
Excellent. There you go. Bubbles.
The Life Center in Pity Valley is another private school which uses some of the more promising practices.
A lot of times you see children with autism and we like to say that their engines are running high, that they're bouncing off the walls, they're climbing, they're touching things, they're throwing things. It's just because their system, their brain is telling them that they need to be getting more input. Michaela's here for occupational therapy, and oftentimes kids with autism need certain types of sensory input to help calm and focus and organize in order to do table work and fine motor work. So Mikhail's the kind of kid who seeks out a lot of deep pressure, squishes. He likes to do things with intensity, so he's constantly moving and running. So at the start of OT, we'll do some squishes, playing on the ball, and then we'll transition to the table.
However, the cost is usually prohibitive for these types of expert professional therapy and structured teaching techniques. In Trinidad and Tobago, the majority of persons with autism are cared for at home. Some are enrolled in private and public special schools, and some in ordinary schools. Young adults with autism may be accepted into vocational institutions as well, like the National Center for Persons with Disabilities in San Fernando.
We have a population here at the center of over 130 persons, right? We take persons with disabilities coming from the ages of between 15 to 35. With persons in terms of autism, we have a population roughly about 10 persons, and all male.
Further south, the Therapeutic and Life Skills Center in Point Fortin is the brainchild of Gina Mohammed, who teaches her autistic son, whilst giving back to the community what she's learned at ASCT-sponsored workshops and training sessions.
I decided with the training that I've gotten from the Autistic Society, along with some other parents, to open a place in the Point Fortin area for the children, that they'll be able to come here and learn to socialize with one another and develop certain skills that they probably never had exposure to before, or some had exposure to but they haven't developed it properly.
Since its inauguration 3 years ago, the TLSC has enrolled 10 children between the ages of 15 to 25 years, tutored mainly by non-professional volunteers.
We have 2 teachers working with us since 2004, and they knew nothing of autism. But working with the children, observing them, and then attending the workshops also, they're getting a better knowledge of them, and they're able to work with them now, and they get along very well with the children.
High tuition costs and the lack of sufficient early intervention centers place additional burdens on limited ASTT resources.
We offer parent-to-parent counseling. We don't have people who are really trained counselors, but it is parents who have a child with autism and they counsel other parents. We have information in terms of the types of teaching strategies, and we have got this information from having annual training sessions since 1999, where we bring down specialists from America.
The Society also encourages as much as possible regular parent-child interaction through a series of public activities like sports meetings and family day activities.
We have had annual family days and Christmas parties annually since 1990, and we are very proud of that, and the children and the families really enjoy themselves.
In the Sister Isle Tobago, autism awareness is on the rise, and here too the lack of proper facilities is a major concern. Looking after children with autism is a full-time occupation that places on the caregiver demands of absolute devotion and total commitment.
You have to actually observe them for a while, whether it takes a few hours, a few weeks, even a few months. You have to actually try and place yourself within them to see their feelings, their actions, what they would like, what they don't like.
Autism is something that is relatively new to me as a parent, and it's difficult at times dealing with it under the circumstances as being a single parent.
Having a child with autism limits you in the home situation. You tend not to go out.
In more ways than one, it has put him to the forefront of even my personal life. For instance, I'm very much into studies, academics, and I would like to, in fact, I'm due to leave here next year. And even at this point in time, I'm thinking about what impact that will have on him, how much I'll miss him, you know, the fun times, even the trying times.
It also requires the understanding and assistance of others within the home and community.
We really need help, a lot of help in the home for partners to be able to go out, to even to a cinema show, you know, some sort of social event on their own. We also need help from the persons like neighbors, for example, to understand what it is we are dealing with. And this is why the education aspect of autism, educating families on the condition is so important. Because if we don't understand that this is a brain disorder, that there are some areas of the brain that have been affected, because the children look normal. And because our child is looking normal, we expect them to behave in a normal, quote-unquote, normal fashion. And it is that the child is having serious difficulty understanding our world, and the human beings in our world are even more difficult for them to understand. So we need persons around the autistic child that understand the condition and learn to accept them for who they are, learn to love them unconditionally. We have tried to surround him with a lot of love and, you know, understanding, and we take him everywhere that we can. And he is now helping his daddy in his office every three afternoons a week. And so he has a job. He's now 24 years old. And we support him in this. He must have somebody with him so that he knows what has to be done. So it's like supervised work experience.
We really love our children, but sometimes we can be our children's greatest obstacle. Allow your children to develop as they should develop. Allow your children to develop to their fullest potential. Allow your children to grow up to be independent. Try to avoid doing everything for them.
Puzzling, heartbreaking, and challenging are words used to describe autism. Though painful, the disorder has created in caregivers a personal capacity they never knew existed to overcome the emotions and deal with harsh public reactions. Perhaps in the dark cloud of the frustrating unknown lies a silver lining in early diagnosis, acceptance by parents, consistent and timely professional early intervention, and significant state and corporate assistance to give these precious human beings a real chance to enjoy fulfilling lives as we all try to unlock the hidden secrets of autism.